Have you ever felt like a stranger in your own life? Why is it that the more clearly you see the world, the less you seem to fit within it? Why does your silence, your questions, your refusal to play along with the superficial spectacle make others, especially women, withdraw, criticize, or misinterpret you? Friedrich Nietzsche wrote, "Madness is something rare in individuals, but in groups, parties, nations, and ages, it is the rule. But you think as an individual, and that is the entire point. You're not dangerous because you are aggressive. You're dangerous because you refuse to be tamed. And in a world where obedience is mistaken for safety, the thinking man becomes a threat simply by existing." Modern unions are built on convenient fictions, not brutal honesty. But the man with clear vision, he is allergic to self-deception. He sees the strings pulling the puppets. He notices the fraud in the pursuit of love that feels more like a transaction. He hears the dissonance between the words spoken and the true intentions. Nietzsche warned us that the morality of the majority is a slave morality, designed for the comfort of the weak. When a man refuses to dissolve into the herd, when he chooses his own path to meaning, a path of solitude and reevaluation, he shatters the very matrix that keeps people passive and emotionally predictable. Women do not fear such men because they're smart. They fear them because they cannot be contained. Because a man who has realized his own power does not rely on flattery to be desired. He doesn't need external validation to feel his own strength. He will not play the role of a compliant actor just to be chosen. He doesn't chase because he sees that most chases are rooted in neurosis, not genuine attraction. And when he does love, he loves with a terrifying intensity, not for comfort, but for a shared ascent. That kind of presence, sharp, perceptive, existentially honest, is exceedingly rare. And what is rare is often rejected before it is revered. Nietzsche wrote extensively about the concept of the last man, but not as most people understand it. This is not a villain. It is the man who has lost the capacity for great ambition, who lives only for comfort and minor pleasures, completely detached from his will to power, his will to grow and overcome himself. And that is what modern culture fears most in men, that they might awaken from this lethargy, that they might stop being convenient and start being real. Because a real man cannot be seduced by applause or emotional blackmail. A real man is no longer driven by the need to be liked. And when a man stops needing to be liked, he becomes free. And when a man becomes free, he becomes unpredictable. Ask yourself, why do you feel misunderstood in every room you enter? Why does your silence make people nervous? Because most people, especially in this attention economy, derive their identity from being seen. But the man of thought, he derives his identity from how he sees. And to see deeply is unbearable for those who are trying to hide. Nietzsche said, "Whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process, he does not become a monster. And if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you." Thinking men live by gazing into that abyss. They are always watching, dissecting, understanding the structure of everything: power, emotion, seduction, fear. So what happens when a man is no longer seduced by the surface? When he stops being enchanted by the games? He becomes unplayable. Not because he's cold, but because he's whole. And that wholeness threatens the entire economy of modern dating, where insecurity is currency and emotional roller coasters are mistaken for passion. Nietzsche knew this. He lived a life of intellectual solitude, breaking ties even with the few who might have understood him, like Lou Andreas Salome. Not because he didn't care, but because he was obsessed with his mission, because he knew that to live authentically meant to reject the role assigned to you by society, even if it cost him everything. Men, listen closely. The higher you climb intellectually, the more isolated you may feel. That is not failure. It is the price of flight. You scare people not because you are unkind, but because you are untamed. And a man who cannot be tamed cannot be controlled. And that is the greatest threat to any system built on manipulation, including romantic ones. Most people are not looking for love. They are looking for utility. They want you to serve a function: provider, performer, protector, puppet. But the thinking man steps outside of those frames, and when he does, he becomes invisible to the ones still inside them. Nietzsche called this the path to becoming the overman, to leave the security of the herd, of systems and superficial expectations, and to walk alone, to love truth more than comfort, to choose suffering, if that suffering is honest, over a bliss that is fake. And that step will cost you. It will strip you bare, but it will also awaken you. Because once you see, truly see, you can never unsee. And your intelligence, if rooted in self-awareness and not just information, will turn you from a man who seeks approval into a man who seeks meaning, or God, or peace. And that is terrifying to others, and sometimes even to yourself. Because what comes next is not for the faint-hearted. Nietzsche once said, "He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how." But most men have lost their why. Not because they lack intelligence, but because they've been trained to apologize for it. You were told to soften your edges, to dim your insights, to pretend you don't see the emptiness, to smile when something is fake, to laugh when something is shallow, to stay silent when something is wrong. You were taught to be agreeable in order to be accepted. But acceptance that demands the death of your essence is not acceptance. It is assimilation. And the thinking man who refuses to assimilate becomes a threat, not just to women, but to everyone who profits from his silence. You scare them not because you are harsh, but because you are precise. Because when you speak, your words carry weight. Because when you look at someone, they feel seen, not flattered. Seen. And being seen is unbearable for those still wearing masks. Most people don't want connection. They want comfort. They want reinforcement of their illusions. But the thinking man dismantles illusions wherever he goes, even in love, especially in love. Because love for him is not a game. It's not a power play. It's not a reenactment of childhood wounds. For the thinking man, love is truth, and truth doesn't always feel good. It feels real. That's why you feel resistance. That's why you're met with confusion, even hostility, because your presence threatens the system that rewards performance. You don't beg. You don't chase. You don't explain yourself 10 times just to be understood. You walk away, not because you're angry, but because your soul refuses to be auctioned off to the highest bidder of convenience. And that kind of man, calm, grounded, inwardly sovereign, is more terrifying than any tyrant, because he is not reacting, he is choosing, and choosing authentically, consciously, is the greatest rebellion left in this world. You want to know why intelligent men scare modern women? It's not because women are shallow. It's not because they're malicious. It's because we live in a world where most people have been conditioned to expect a performance, not a presence. And the intelligent man cannot fake presence. He brings himself fully, or not at all. And most are not ready for that kind of fullness. It's too raw, too unfiltered, too demanding of self-awareness. And most people, men and women alike, would rather stay comfortably asleep than wake up to their own contradictions. Nietzsche's life was a testament to this paradox. He loved human potential, but he held humanity at a distance, not because he didn't feel, but because he felt too much. He knew his path was solitary, that his inner world was too wide, too turbulent to be anchored to anyone else. That's the paradox of the intelligent man. He longs for intimacy, but not at the cost of his integrity. He desires connection, but refuses to perform for it. He is willing to walk alone rather than dilute his essence just to be desired. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. And it terrifies people because deep down, everyone wants to be chosen. But the intelligent man, he wants to be met. And being met requires the other to also be whole, to have gone through their own fires, to have unlearned their own lies. And most aren't ready for that. So they call you distant, difficult, cold. But the truth is, you're not cold. You're clear. You don't hate women. You just don't worship illusions. You don't hate love. You just refuse to call dependency love. You've seen too much to play blind. And that's what scares them. You're not manipulable. You're not predictable. You're not waiting to be told who to be. Nietzsche said, "The most common form of despair is not being who you are. But you, if you're listening this far, you are different. You want to know who you are beyond the noise, beyond the roles, beyond the craving for approval. And that journey will cost you popularity. It will cost you comfort. It may even cost you love. But what you gain in return is far more powerful. Selfhood, sovereignty, sanity. You will stop searching for someone to complete you because you will no longer feel incomplete. And that, brother, is when you become truly dangerous. Not to others, but to the system that thrives on broken men. Because the deeper we go, the more everything starts to unravel. Especially the lies you've been told about what it means to be a man in the eyes of the world. Nietzsche was not interested in success as society defines it. He wrote, "The most perilous hazard of all, losing oneself, can occur very quietly in the world, as if it were nothing at all. And that is precisely what's happened to so many men. A quiet disappearance, not physical, not loud, but spiritual. Men have lost themselves trying to be palatable, trying to be charming, trying to be whatever the room wanted, until one day they look in the mirror and see a stranger. But the intelligent man, he cannot pretend for long. The tension builds inside him. He starts to notice that what others call confidence is often arrogance, that what they call love is often dependency, that what they call chemistry is often trauma, speaking its native tongue. He starts to see, and once you see, you suffer. That's the price of awareness. You suffer because you no longer fit. You suffer because your questions ruin parties, because your clarity offends comfort, because your need for truth repels those addicted to performance. And this is where the Nietzschean paradox sets in. You either betray yourself to be accepted by the world, or you betray the world to remain true to yourself. Most men take the first path. It's easier. It's praised, but it's a slow death. The intelligent man, if he is brave, chooses the second. And in that choice, he begins to live. Not comfortably, not safely, but honestly. And this honesty manifests in everything: how he speaks, how he dates, how he works, how he worships, how he walks away. And the world punishes that kind of man, because a man who cannot be seduced by the crowd becomes a mirror to everyone still trapped in it. Let's talk about relationships. Why does a woman feel uneasy around the intelligent man? Not because he doesn't care, but because he cares differently. He doesn't chase, he observes, he doesn't flatter, he listens. He doesn't respond to every emotional cue like a trained dog. He chooses his reactions with surgical precision. This makes him mysterious, and mystery terrifies people who need constant emotional reinforcement. The intelligent man is not absent. He's selectively present, and this selectivity feels like rejection to those used to being worshipped without effort. But he doesn't worship. He discerns. Because intelligence, when combined with emotional clarity, becomes a kind of spiritual X-ray vision. You see through smiles, through games, through flattery, and that kind of sight unnerves anyone still hiding. Nietzsche spoke often about the individual's responsibility to overcome himself, not a social role, not a performer, not a mirror of other people's expectations, but a self. And becoming a self requires silence, stillness, reflection, solitude. 4 things modern culture is allergic to, because a man who sits in silence too long might stop consuming, might stop conforming, might stop apologizing for who he is, and most terrifyingly, he might stop chasing what was never worthy of him in the first place. You want to terrify people? Walk into a room and don't seek attention. Just observe. Don't over-explain. Speak with precision. Set boundaries without raising your voice. Be kind without being compliant. Be romantic without being dependent. Watch what happens. Watch how people begin to adjust themselves in your presence, because deep down, everyone senses when a man is rooted, and most don't know what to do with him, especially when he's not performing. That's the secret of intelligent men. They don't perform, and that's what makes them dangerous. Nietzsche wrote, "All I need is a sheet of paper and something to write with, and then I can turn the world upside down." Your thoughts are that powerful. The intelligent man cannot be easily labeled. Is he cold? No, he's composed. Is he arrogant? No, he's self-respecting. Is he aloof? No, he's discerning. But labels are easier than reflection, so the world will reduce him to anything that makes his clarity feel less threatening. But don't let that shake you. Let it sharpen you. Let it deepen your solitude. Let it fortify your path. You are not built to be palatable. You are not made to beg. You are not designed to be everyone's comfort zone. You are made to become a man in the Nietzschean sense, aware, faithful to your own truth, willing to walk alone into the storm. If that's what it takes to keep your soul intact, then let's walk further into the storm. Nietzsche warned us, the herd is untruth, and yet most men still look to the herd for validation. They measure their worth by how many hearts they can win, how many smiles they can spark, how many people clap when they speak. But that applause is a trap, because it teaches you to shape yourself according to what pleases others, not according to what is real within you. And here's the truth you weren't told. The more intelligent you become, the less applause you will receive, because you are no longer playing for the crowd, you are playing for your soul. And most people don't clap for that. They stare, they question, they shrink. You scare people not because you are cruel, but because you are clear. In a culture built on noise, your silence is disturbing. In a world built on stimulation, your stillness is unsettling. In an age of constant availability, your refusal to be emotionally summoned on command feels like rebellion. And it is. It's the rebellion of a man who has reclaimed his mind, his heart, and his attention. You don't owe anyone a reaction. You don't owe anyone your confusion. The intelligent man does not explain himself to those committed to misunderstanding him. Have you noticed how quickly people grow uneasy when you stop oversharing? When you start protecting your thoughts? When your eyes say more than your words? This is the energy of a man who is no longer trying to be understood by everyone. And that kind of man terrifies not just women, but society at large. Because society thrives when men are distracted, when they're addicted, when they're chasing. But the intelligent man doesn't chase, he chooses. And this choosing, the calm deliberation of a man who knows his worth, makes him unreadable, unplayable, untouchable. Nietzsche called it the free spirit, the man who has separated himself from the herd, not in arrogance, but in authenticity. He walks alone, but not because he's antisocial. He walks alone because most paths lead to noise, and he wants truth. He wants depth. He wants to create his own values. And here's the paradox. The more rooted you become in yourself, the more people will try to shake you. Not because you are wrong, but because you remind them of what they abandoned, their depth, their integrity, their silence. In love, this is even more profound. The intelligent man doesn't romanticize chaos. He doesn't confuse unpredictability with passion. He is drawn to alignment, not excitement. He wants peace, not performance. And when he speaks of love, he speaks of something holy, not hormonal. That kind of desire, that sacred, quiet, unwavering presence can be terrifying to a woman who has only known love as drama. It can feel cold, but it's not. It's steady. And steadiness is unfamiliar to people who are still addicted to the highs and lows of emotional instability. But you must not shrink. You must not soften your clarity to be more acceptable. You must not hide your intelligence to seem less intimidating. Your role is not to fit into the world's confusion. It is to remain anchored in your own truth. And sometimes, truth walks alone. Nietzsche lived in that solitude. He was mocked, ridiculed, misunderstood. He walked away from potential human connections, not because he didn't feel, but because he felt too much, because he knew that his life's mission, his truth, could not coexist with the roles others wanted him to play. And that's your challenge now. Will you keep playing roles for comfort? Or will you finally become the man you were meant to be, even if it means being feared, rejected, or alone? The intelligent man doesn't seek to be liked. He seeks to be aligned. And when you become aligned, truly aligned, the right people will recognize you. Not because you impressed them, but because your silence echoed something they forgot they had within themselves. So stop over-explaining. Stop apologizing for your solitude. Stop doubting the strength of your vision. You are not too much. You are too real for a world that rewards imitation. And the more real you become, the lonelier it may feel, but the more powerful you will be. Because that power will not come from charm or wealth or image. It will come from your refusal to abandon yourself. You've come this far, so let's not stop now. Because what's on the other side of this path, the one paved with clarity, solitude, and self-mastery, is not just strength. It's freedom. And Nietzsche understood something few people ever grasp, that the price of true freedom is everything that once made you feel accepted. He wrote, "The higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly." Once a man stops outsourcing his identity, once he no longer seeks permission to be himself, he is hit with the terrifying realization that there is no map, no approval, no one to tell him he's on the right track. There is only him and his will, and the abyss between them. That's why intelligent men scare the world, because they walk into the abyss with open eyes. They don't hide behind distractions. They don't numb themselves with entertainment. They don't flood their schedule just to avoid silence. They sit in it. They endure the unease. They feel the questions most men never dare to ask. Who am I without my work? Without my validation? Without someone clinging to me for emotional stability? Most men run from those questions. The intelligent man makes a home in them. And when he meets a woman, he doesn't seek to possess her. He doesn't want to fix her, control her, or impress her. He wants to see her. And that kind of seeing is rare. It pierces through vanity, through ego, through performance. It demands presence. It demands truth. And truth is a fire that most people fear because it doesn't flatter. It doesn't negotiate. It simply is. And the intelligent man, when grounded in that truth, becomes a force that cannot be swayed by charm nor broken by rejection. He is not cold. He is not harsh. He is simply whole. You want to understand why you're avoided, misread, even villainized? It's because you stopped chasing shadows. And once you stop chasing shadows, those who live in them start to feel exposed. Your presence becomes a judgment. Even when you say nothing, your standards become an offense. Even when you don't impose them, you have become a mirror. And most people hate mirrors that don't flatter. But your job is not to flatter. Your job is to reflect what's real. First within yourself, then in the world around you. Nietzsche spoke of the overman, a man who lives inwardly before he lives outwardly, a man who does not depend on logic alone nor emotion alone, but on a deeper drive that cannot be explained to the masses. The man on this path walks the earth unnoticed by most. He's not loud. He's not decorated in titles. He may not even look successful by the world's standards, but inside him burns a fire that cannot be dimmed by trend, by rejection, or by loneliness. And that's the man you're becoming. The one who is no longer seeking an identity, but embodying one. Let's be honest, it's not easy. You'll lose people. You'll question yourself. You'll face long nights where the silence is so loud it feels like a scream. You'll wonder if something's wrong with you because you can no longer enjoy the things that used to thrill you. You'll walk away from relationships that once felt like home, only to realize they were houses built on sand. But you'll also feel something new, a strange, unfamiliar peace, a stillness in your soul that doesn't come from being liked, but from being right with yourself. And that peace, that alignment, that deep, resonant integrity is worth everything you've lost. So no, you are not too quiet. You are not too deep. You are not too intense. You are not too much. You are becoming whole. And in a fragmented world, wholeness is terrifying because it cannot be manipulated. It cannot be seduced. It cannot be purchased. And above all, it cannot be ignored. You are not broken. You are becoming. And what you are becoming is the very thing the world is desperate for and terrified of at the same time. A man who cannot be moved by lies, not even the ones he used to tell himself. Nietzsche believed that every man, in the depths of his soul, is called to become something more than what the world expects. Not more in status, not more in fame, but more in truth. He wrote, "My humanity is a constant self-overcoming." That's the essence of your transformation. It's not about knowing more. It's about becoming more. Becoming what? A man who is no longer defined by reactions, expectations, or fleeting desire, but by the eternal commitment to becoming whole, no matter the cost. By now, you've probably felt the weight of this path, the ache of solitude, the sting of being misunderstood, the exhaustion of being the only one in the room who sees clearly, while others play blind. But let me tell you something. Most won't. That pain you feel is sacred. That loneliness is not your enemy. It's your proving ground. Because once you've learned to walk alone, to sit in silence, to observe without reacting, to love without losing yourself, then and only then do you become truly untouchable. The intelligent man who embodies Nietzsche's truths does not fear rejection because he no longer lives in pursuit of being chosen. He has chosen himself. And that changes everything. It changes how you love. You stop looking for someone to fill your silence and start seeking someone who respects it. It changes how you work. You stop performing for a paycheck and start building something that reflects your essence. It changes how you exist because you're no longer driven by escape, but by alignment. And this alignment makes you rare, not because you've become better than anyone else, but because you've dared to face what most men never do, the unbearable light of your own potential. Most people run from it. They settle, they shrink, they conform. But you listened to the whisper. You followed it through the fog, through the heartbreak, through the ridicule. And now, here you are, not finished, not flawless, but free. And that freedom, quiet as it may seem, speaks louder than any performance ever could. You've learned to walk away when something insults your soul. You've learned to say no, not to hurt, but to protect. You've learned that peace is not found in the presence of others, but in the absence of self-betrayal. You've learned that love is not a transaction, it's a mirror, and that the woman worthy of your depth is not the one who flatters your surface, but the one who sees your silence and chooses to stay anyway. And maybe she'll come, maybe she won't, but either way, you will not wait in desperation. You will walk your path alone if you must, whole either way. Nietzsche lived a life of solitude, but not sorrow. His pain became scripture, his questions became fire, and his writings, they became the map for men like you. Men who feel too much, think too deeply, and refuse to perform for approval. So if you are misunderstood, good. If you are feared, good. If you are called cold, arrogant, distant, good. It means you've stopped being digestible. It means you've stopped living on the surface. It means you've started to matter. Because at the end of the day, the world doesn't need more nice guys. It doesn't need more charm. It doesn't need more puppets. It needs men, real men who know who they are, who walk in silence, who love without losing themselves, who speak when it counts and disappear when it doesn't. Men who are so rooted in their truth that nothing, not even love, can make them abandon it. And if you are that man, or becoming that man, then know this. You will not be for everyone, but you will be unforgettable to the few who see you. You will not be worshipped by the crowd, but you will be respected by the rare. And most importantly, you will respect yourself in the quiet moments, in the hard choices, in the long nights when you choose peace over performance, truth over approval, solitude over shallow comfort. If this message spoke to your soul, don't let it end here, like this video. Share it with someone who's still in the fog. Subscribe for more truths they'll never teach you in school. And if you want to support this mission, if you believe men need to hear this now more than ever, click the link in the description and support the channel. Your voice matters. Your mind matters.